So last month, Mike spoke mostly on why eat a plant-based diet, and then this month is mostly going to be on how. And he's really, really good. We're really pleased that he's doing this. And he is very knowledgeable, and we're lucky to have him. So Mike,
but not the expert.
You are the expert.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. So as he mentioned, how's everybody doing? Okay. My name is Mike Thomas. I run a company called WLScoaching.net. Okay, and in my company, I help individuals convert to healthy lifestyles like plant-based eating, exercise, stress modalities, what they can do to sleep better, as well as what they can do to have the fifth pillar, which is loving, supportive relationships in their life. So I want to talk to you a little bit about my company and see if you're interested in possibly being somebody that I can help and mentor towards better health at the end of the presentation, but kind of wanted to cue you up for that. Having said that, one of the things that I do in my company is I send my clients, my former clients, as well as friends and family, a recipe every Tuesday. And it's a recipe that I try with my family. It's one from the internet. I take pictures, and if it's good, I send an email to my clients and et cetera. I also send them a video on Wednesdays called Watch It Wednesday. And that video usually has something to do with health-related items. It could be about changing behaviors. It could be about what you can do to, information about plant-based eating or what have you. So I'd like to pass around this. If anybody would be interested in receiving those 2 emails on a weekly basis, you're certainly welcome to have at it for those. I'm not selling your email, just as a heads up. I just use those and I have those, but I want to make sure that I'm sharing it with as many people that are interested as possible. If you're not interested in putting your email, please don't. It's totally 100% okay. I wanted to tell you about that as well. The second thing I want to share with you is my personal story. My mom's side of the family, there's a lot of heart disease. And I've pretty much been about this size. When I started this journey, I was about 30 pounds heavier, but I've been about this size for quite some time, and I've also run in a capacity. I ran in college, I ran in high school, so I've been a runner, but I was afraid that I was going to be one of those people that, sure enough, I thought Mike was healthy, but he died of a heart attack because I was having chest pain, and a number of my cholesterol levels are not very good, or at least they were not very good. So I was really challenged with, even though we've got amazing technology today, I'm going to be one of those statistics, and there's nothing I can do about it. And as you're well aware, if you feel hopeless, you feel helpless, it's very scary. It's a very scary thought. So I saw a documentary about 4 years ago called The Widowmaker, and it scared the heck out of me. And it really is about the Widowmaker artery that's in the heart that gets clogged up. And typically when you have a heart attack in this artery, the left anterior descending, you die. I mean, not always, but usually you die. And so that's why they call it the Widowmaker. It was very, very scary. And I actually went to my wife and said, you know what, I want to go in and get an angiogram, which is where they shoot the dye into you, because I was having chest pain and I was very, very concerned. And you can't just go to the doctor and say, give me this angiogram. You have to have some more significant symptoms before they would do something like that, because there is risk with that. So bottom line is, about 6-7 months later, I used to work for Walgreens for many years as a pharmacist. About 6-7 months later, I went into a Walgreens and met with one of my store managers, Chris Wisegood. He's still the store manager on the Stevenson location. And he told me about being a vegan or being plant-based. And I was like, vegan, is that a religion? What is that? I mean, I had no idea. And he just started talking to me a little bit about it, and I figured it wasn't for me. I mean, that's whatever, you can have your plants. And then he said, but they're actually showing you can stop or reverse heart disease. And as soon as he said that, I was just like, tell me a little more about that. That was on December the 26th, 2016. And by that night, which was a Monday, I was pretty much going to be all in, going right into it. I was like, I'm going to do this. This is a way that this is my lifeline that I could actually say, I'm going to be okay. And this is the stuff that I had read and studied in really about 6 or 7 hours that day. January the 1st, I started being plant-based. Right before I started, I went back to Chris and said, I've read so much about everybody making fun of me that I'm probably only going to go partially. Because that's a possibility, and you'll hear that message a lot today as well. And he goes, Mike, just go for it. Just go for it. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to learn from your mistakes. and it's going to get easier and easier. And he had been plant-based for 6 weeks at that time, which today he still is, and just qualified for the Boston Marathon. I don't guarantee that any of those results for anybody. But anyway, I said, oh, are you sure? And he said, yeah, just go for it. And I said, okay, I will. And sure enough, I did. And I made a lot of mistakes, like he said. I had a lot of gastrointestinal issues. I was really challenged with all I know is to eat salad because I know that's a plan and that's pretty much what I got to do. So I was having salad at lunch, I was having salad at dinner, and they were huge salads. So that was January 1st. January 9th was not a very good day for me in the household, let me just say that, right? So, but like I said, I learned, I adapted. So much of what I've learned from the videos that I've watched, I've read over 30 books now on plant-based eating, on plant-based lifestyle. Much of what I've learned, much of what I've shared, much of what I've watched, I've tried to encapsulate in probably the next hour or so for you guys. But the big message is, you don't have to be perfect. I'm definitely not perfect at plant-based. I do sometimes have meat. I would say I'm probably 98% plant-based. When I go to Texas, I was just sharing, when I go to Texas, my wife and I do participate in some beef fajitas about once a year. But I pretty much don't eat meat, and where I do go by the wayside is sometimes with the processed foods. But the reality is you can do some pretty amazing things for your health, even just by going a little bit, and there's some simple tips and tricks to do that as well. So let's just make sure we're passing around the clipboard if we could, please. Did you get the handouts? Everybody got the handouts? Everybody got my business card? Okay, sounds good. So that's a little bit about me. Last thing I want to just finish with before I get into the handout itself is, you know, in America and in the world in general, I heard an analogy earlier today, which I thought was really good. Anybody hear the analogy where how to cook a frog, is a live frog, is you just basically throw it in boiling water and it jumps out, but if you just turn the water on and it gets warmer and warmer, it kind of falls asleep and it dies and you boil the frog. Have you guys heard that before? I don't know if it's true or not, but let's just say it is. That's pretty much what's going on with America as it relates to heart disease, obesity. I mean, look what's happened. Some of the statistics you're going to hear in a minute, and some of you were here last month, heard them as well. It's pretty frightening what's happening, what's currently happening with the onslaught of meats, with the onslaught of the processed foods and the oils, and how 86% of the chronic conditions that we currently experience in our healthcare is actually preventable, right? So you think about that, I think that's a great analogy to what's happening, and we're going to wake up and go, oh my gosh, look what happened. And some people actually don't wake up, right? It's very, very scary specifically. So the handouts themselves, I put those together this week. What I have on there is 8 fast meals, and I classify a fast meal as something, if you have the ingredients on hand, you can throw it together in 15 minutes or less, okay? So those fast meals and those recipes are actually in your handouts themselves. There's other slides with recipes. Jeff Novick, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Jeff Novick. Bobby, have you heard of Jeff?
Yeah.
So Jeff Novick's just an amazing, hilarious guy. If you just Google him, videos, he's got a ton of videos online. I've actually purchased all 4 of his DVDs called Fast Food, where he talks about some of the fast meals and stuff. Some of his DVDs come with actually a PDF, and I've included in your handout some of the PDFs, and I'll talk about that in just a minute as well. Sometimes people ask me, and I don't know if I got this question the last time I was here, but, you know, do you ever eat out, Mike? And we do. We eat out actually quite a bit. And it's very hard to eat out and eat clean. We realize that. But I've included in your handout some of the restaurants that my wife and I eat at in the Springfield area, and some of the meals that we have there as well that are primarily plant-based. Probably not 100% sugar, salt, and oil-free, but still pretty healthy. And then your last page on your handout is also there for you for notes. Just a note of thanks to Bob again for inviting me to talk with you guys last month, and inviting me and calling me back in November about this organization that I was not aware of, and also for you and your time. Really, my hope is that you'll come away from the next hour to an hour and a half with a little bit more of an education. For me, it's a mission. You know, I retired a couple of years ago, and really what I do, and everything I talked about with my clients, I don't charge any money at all. I'm not getting any. Bob didn't give me a check when I walked in today for today's presentation, at least not yet, anyway. Maybe. Not yet, okay. So what I do, and really this is a mission of love to help inform people. Because as a healthcare provider and as a pharmacist for many years, I had no idea, and quite frankly, your physicians don't know either. A lot of them don't know the power of plants and what that could do to potentially help you for the future. So thanks for your time, and I'm hoping that this will be impactful for you. The way the presentation is broken down is we start with the why, which is really a lot of what I talked about the last time. And I really just, in the first few minutes, just want to talk about that again and laser point to those 3 areas of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. and the how. We really get into the nuts and bolts specifically about different recipes, logistics, some of the intangibles, some of the tangible things you can do with execution and logistics. And then I talk about the WLS coaching program that I shared with you a few minutes ago. And then we'll just open it up for Q&A. If there's a question somebody has that I don't have an answer for, I would love to be able to get back to you on that as well. So let's get into the why. As I mentioned earlier, $3.5 trillion is spent on healthcare in America, which is 5 times our federal defense budget, or about $11,000 per person. We rank 27th out of 34 free democracies in longevity. So we're really probably not getting the bang out of the buck, even though we spend more than everybody else. We're the most obese country in the world, and 2018 was the 3rd year in a row where longevity, life expectancy actually went down. And for the last time it went down, I think it was the 20s when they had the plague or something, literally. So it continues to get better and better and better, and now we've had 3 years in a row. Remember the analogy about the frog. So heart disease is one of the ones I talked about quite a bit. Again, it's near and dear to my heart. It's the #1 killer in America for both men and women. 1.25 million people have a heart attack each year, and unfortunately, almost 500,000 people die from it. Someone dies every 52 seconds, so since Bob started talking 13 minutes ago, we probably have had about 15 or 16 people on average pass away from heart disease, unfortunately. There's 500,000 people that have open heart surgery every year, which is anywhere from $75,000 to $125,000. And whole food plant-based is the only diet or lifestyle that's been shown to actually stop or reverse heart disease. Diabetes, this is really focusing primarily on type 2 diabetes, which 90 to 95% of the folks that have diabetes is type 2, where you're not insulin dependent. The pathophysiology is the fat that's around the cells, the liver, and the pancreas. How can we minimize that? But look what has happened in the last 54 years. 1965, 2.5 million people had diabetes. Remember the analogy of the frog. 2017, 29 million people. It's now being called the Black Death of the 21st century. 29 million people had it in 2017. Whole food plant-based diet can stop or reverse type 2 diabetes, and has been shown to do that many times over, and I talked about that last time as well. And then obesity, but we could talk about erectile dysfunction. We could talk about many of the autoimmune disorders and what whole food plant-based can do with that as well. But obesity, 71%, now the statistic on here is actually outdated, but 71% of the United States is either obese or overweight. Remember we talked about as far as the frog goes. Worldwide, obesity has doubled since 1980. And some of the causes and what it affects, heart disease and stroke, obviously, high blood pressure, obviously, high cholesterol, some cancers, and diabetes. Huge economic cost of obesity. So standard American diet breakdown is pretty straightforward. 57% of what we consume in calories is processed foods. 32% is animal products, and 11% on average, so anywhere from probably 9 to 12% is really what we want to do, which is your whole food plant-based. Your vegetables, your fruits, your whole grains, beans, and legumes. Think about what you can do potentially to make that 11% a 40%, a 50%, a 60%, a 90%, which really isn't that hard to do. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So processed foods. What's wrong with processed foods? Well, there's a lot that's wrong with processed foods. Very highly caloric foods that really don't have a whole lot of nutritional value and have a ton of oil in them, which is an inflammatory in the body. Many chemicals that are in there, and if you look at some of the back of the processed foods with the nutritional facts, tons of chemicals that extend the life of the actual product, but not necessarily the life of you. And they're not necessarily real food. Why eliminate oil? High calories. If you look at the calorie density of oil per pound, it's about 4,000 calories per pound if you look at calorie density. So a ton of calories, tons of inflammation, no nutritional value, and it actually affects or damages the endothelial wall, which is the arteries and the arteries and veins. So is being vegan healthy? And somebody talked about the Impossible Burger. So everything on your screen is actually plant-based. And just to be clear, and again, this was my ignorance back in the day when I was pounding Oreos thinking I was being healthy, because it was not it was plant-based. Quite frankly, you can be vegan, you can be plant-based, and you can be very unhealthy in the process. So everything on your screen is not very healthy, and unfortunately, including the Impossible Burger. So you got French fries, we know those are potatoes. Oreos are proud that they're vegan, but there's tons of sugar there, obviously. And the Impossible Burger is really, really good for the environment. And the Impossible Burger is really, really good, obviously, for the animals. But it has a lot of saturated fats. It has got a lot of fats and oils in it. It tastes delicious, but it's not necessarily healthy. So please don't think that having something like that is a good alternative for you for better health, because it's not. What's wrong with the 32% animal product? So there's a ton, a lot more I could put on the screen itself specifically, but I want to focus on increased cholesterol and saturated fats, which obviously predisposes for heart disease, obesity, diabetes, cancer, and stroke. Interesting fact that as you eat animal products, that saturated fat that's in the animal product actually gives you more cholesterol because it converts than actual cholesterol itself that you're eating inside that meat. There's no fiber in animal products, which is incredibly important. Only 2% of Americans get the fiber that they need on a daily basis, which is 25 to 30 grams of fiber. On average, the average American, because they're eating lots of meats, lots of processed foods, and not very many plants, is only getting about 15 grams of fiber. And in 2015, the World Health Organization categorized processed meats, so your bacons, your hams, your salamis, et cetera, as a class 1, level 1 carcinogen, which is the same as smoking cigarettes. So reading labels, I want to go through a real quick exercise with you. The best foods don't have labels. So if you go to the produce section, you can see the back of that apple. There's no label there. So you want to look for items that have the lowest number of ingredients specifically. And here's a couple of exercises for you. So the one on the left is cholesterol, right? So cholesterol, you can see this has 65 milligrams of cholesterol. It's actually it's an animal product. It's a fillet fish. The one on the right here, you can see there's 340 calories for that specifically, and it has 620 milligrams of sodium. And when you're buying something on the label and you're looking at the sodium, you want the number of milligrams of sodium to be equal to or less than the number of calories. So here you have twice as much sodium. So you wonder how that fillet fish was actually cooked, right? You have twice as much sodium than you want. Fiber and saturated fats. I love the one on the left here. The one on the left is reading that label. This is actually a cereal, but you can see the total carbohydrates is 38 grams, and your total dietary fiber is 10 grams. And if you take your total carbohydrates, which is 38 grams, and you divide it by the dietary fiber, which is 10 grams, it gives you 3.8. The lower the number, the more fiber that's in that. Okay, so let's say your dietary fiber was 20, then that number would be half as much. You want those types of breads and those types of cereals. You shoot for a target of 5 or less. In this scenario, actually the example is 3.8. That's very good. But you'll see on the front of the labels of the bread, oh, high fiber, great, whole grain, and you look at the back and the ratio is 9 to 1 or 10 to 1 or 12 to 1. So it doesn't have nearly the fiber that it could have. And then one on the right, again, there's your saturated fat, so it's an animal product, and we want to try to avoid that to the best of our ability as well. So what's right with plants? So obviously no cholesterol, tons of fiber that I talked about already, better nutrition, vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals, better weight management with the calorie density, and you'll see that slide in just a moment. You can get more energy, and I talk a little bit about starches. Dr. McDougall, who's huge on starches. You can edge out the animal products and the processed foods as you're having more and more of the whole food plant-based. The fuel that you eat, the food that you eat is the fuel that you feed your body with. So it's incredibly important to recognize how important that is with plants. Obviously, a lot of the troubling statistics and trends. And as I mentioned earlier, the way we eat, the SAD diet, is the root cause of 85% of our chronic conditions. There's the percentages again, 57% processed foods, 32% animal products, 11% of the whole food plant-based, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, and legumes. And I categorized this, I just put this together when I presented to this back at St. Joseph's in Chatham a few months ago, as different zones. So your typical American is going to be from 0 to 12%, as I mentioned before, or in the black zone. And again, how could you switch it so you can go a higher percentage and potentially be up to 50% to be in the red zone? Or what if you're over 50% and up to 75%, being in the orange zone? And then to the green zone, which is 75 to 90%, and then the gold zone, which is the zone that I personally try to aspire to on a daily basis. And most days I can get there, and it's really not that difficult. So I break down the how, and this is where we really get to the nuts and the bolts of the how-to itself. So the intangibles, the logistics, and the execution of clean eating itself. The intangibles. These two things are critically important. And when I started coaching clients, which was February of last year, so roughly about 13 months ago, I didn't think too much about this. I thought it was about, okay, you're interested in plants, here's some recipes and have a nice day, let me know if I can help you. When you start getting into why the individual is interested in pursuing plants and really what does that mean specifically to them. So for example, I would say probably most of us are interested in plants because we want to be healthy. But what does better health mean to you? Well, it means I'm going to live a life that's less disability. It means I'm going to be able to see my grandkids graduate from college someday. It can mean any number of things. It means I'm going to feel better. It means I'm going to have energy. So we get into some of the specifics versus I want to be healthy and I want to lose weight, which are wonderful reasons why as well. So we dig in specifically with your why. And then support. You can be 100% whole food plant-based without support in your life, but it is so much easier, so much less difficult when you have the support of your friends and your family, the people that love you and care about you a great deal. So you can have that from friends, family, you can have it from a buddy, or you can have it from a coach. When I get into the logistics of the how itself, one of the most important is clearing the environment. Okay? With my program, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth, right? And that's something that Chef AJ says all the time. So clear the environment. And I've got two examples there of what the environment could look like around Halloween, or it could look like the other way with the picture on the bottom, right? As you come in and you have a rough day at work or a rough day with your significant other and you're not in a good mood and you want to grab that comfort food, it could be your Reese's Buttercups, even though you know you really want to eat as healthy as possible. But if it's sitting there and it's around, what you want to do is you want to minimize that to the best of your ability. Instead, if you have the fruit there, you can grab a banana instead. So a much healthier choice by clearing the environment. With my clients, I work with them on clearing their environment to the degree that makes sense for themselves. Some of them live in an environment where it's not just them or it's not just their whole family going. So they do have to have some of the other foods, meat products or processed foods in their house. Some of them actually pitch, discard, get rid of, give away the food in one weekend. Some of them eat and consume it over the course of about 4 to 6 weeks before they start the program. It doesn't matter. It's whatever makes sense for them, but they basically don't replace it with the bad foods. They replace it with the healthy foods. Just is whatever you can do within the 4 walls of your house to clean that up in the environment itself. So there's the clear the environment for your logistics. Planning and preparation, I talk about that in a few minutes and how incredibly important that is, really in establishing the routine. Tracking your meals. I have a number of my clients that actually will send me their meals on a daily basis via text just to say, here's what I had today. And I don't do that for accountability to me. I do that for for awareness and mindfulness for them. So they are really, truly aware that this is what they're putting in their mouths. And they do that for 2 to 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what makes sense for them. But just having that awareness, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I ate today. You know, where am I in my percentage of plants? Recipes, so starting with just 3 to 5 recipes, and there's plenty available online. I gave some the last meeting. I've got some here for you today as well. But really starting with 3 to 5, the average household really pretty much has about 8 to 12 recipes that they basically roll through on an ongoing basis. They don't have a quadre of about 40 recipes, although you could if you wanted to. And then find the way that makes sense for you. Remember I said I jumped in all 100% in the beginning? In the beginning, I was going to just kind of dip my toe in the water. But you can do it any number of ways. You can lean in. You can go Monday through Friday. You can have just breakfasts, whatever makes sense for you. Again, this is not about perfection and going 100% if that's what makes sense for you. So the execution, and this is a really, really important statement here, is the starches. Starches is the staple of this way of eating. So it's your potatoes, it's your brown rice, it's your sweet potatoes, it's your beans, your quinoa, your whole grain pasta. It gives you the energy that you need and the satiety that you need. If you skip the starches because you were told you weren't supposed to eat this because it was going to make you fat, it's going to make it that much more difficult for you because it's not sustainable. The name of my company is called WLS Coaching, which stands for Weight Loss Sustainability. This isn't about helping a client to get through 8 weeks of trying to eat healthy so they can get back to what they wanted to eat before. This is actually establishing habits and routines so they can do this for the rest of their life if they want to. It's about sustainability. You build your meals around your starches. And I get into those 3 starches, even though I know beans isn't really technically a starch. The first one is potatoes. Just simple, fast, average-sized potato. Poke a few holes in it, throw it in the microwave for 3 minutes. 3 minutes later, turn it over, 3 more minutes, and you're good to go with pretty much a cooked potato. That's how simple it could be. You're going to hear and see in this making plants convenient in different colors on the next several slides, but this is potentially one of the drawbacks of being plant-based. It's really not a drive-through, one of your fast food, paying $10 and getting unhealthy foods. It's not necessarily that kind of a program, right? So it can be conceived of being too expensive, which I kind of took away that last month, and also it can be conceived as being inconvenient. So I want to give you some tips and tricks that potentially can make it a little bit more convenient for you. Here's one of them. These are steamables that you can purchase at Meijer. It's I think it's $2.99 for the bag. It's 1.5 pounds potatoes. You can see you get a whole quadre of different kinds of potatoes. Making plants convenient. You throw that in the microwave and you've got 1.5 pounds of cooked potatoes in about 8 or 9 minutes. Making it convenient. So beans, I recommend, don't have to, but I recommend that my clients purchase an Instant Pot. You can get one at Walmart for $59. I love it because you can I cook beans and brown rice in mine all the time, sometimes brown rice several times a week, and I always have it in my refrigerator as well as something I can just throw together or throw it in the microwave and heat it up because I've cooked it. But there's a simple recipe here, 1 cup of dry black beans, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper, 4 cups of water. You throw it in the Instant Pot, you set it on 30, and you say go. In 15 minutes, it pressurizes, and then for 30 minutes. So in 45 minutes, you pretty much have very delicious tasting black beans in this example. Canned beans, again, making plants convenient. So this is a way where somebody can have something very, very healthy, tasty. It's fast. It's very inexpensive. I think you can get a organic canned bean at Walmart for 52 cents, which is pretty good. Longer shelf life, because some people are like, well, the produce goes bad. Well, that's true to a certain extent. But the canned beans you can have for a very long time. But you always want to choose the one that has no sodium or, at a minimum, low sodium. Your regular beans that have sodium in them that's added have 20 times the amount of sodium than a no sodium bean. So that's making plants convenient. And the last one is brown rice. I just love brown rice. I have it all the time. Sometimes we have it as a side. Sometimes it's main part of the main course of the meal. Again, very similar recipe. 3 cups of rice, 3 cups of water, and then 1 teaspoon each of black pepper, onion powder, and garlic powder. This one's not for 30 minutes, it's for 25 minutes. So in about 40 minutes, you've got some delicious tasting brown rice out of your Instant Pot. What could be more convenient than that? Well, this on the screen is more convenient, actually. In 10 minutes, you could boil some water and throw in one of those bags of Success brown rice. And $1.96 for 4 of them, making plants convenient. You can have brown rice lickety-split. What could be more convenient to that? Well, actually, this could be more convenient to that. Organic brown rice from Trader Joe's. I think it's $4, 3 packages. You take it out, you throw it in the microwave for 3 minutes. It actually tastes really, really good. I know there's not a Trader Joe's in the area, but we go to St. Louis from time to time, as well as some of our friends do, and they make a run for the brown rice for us, which is wonderful. So again, very inexpensive, a great way to have something that's very, very healthy and very convenient, making plants convenient. When I explain to my clients about my program, sometimes I show them a PowerPoint about the WLS program, and I always call this the money slide because this is where the rubber hits the road as far as what you actually do when you're eating. And that is you pretty much take what's on the left, which is your non-starchy vegetables, and you combine it with what's on the right, which is your starchy vegetables. So it is, it's a spinach salad with a sweet potato, or with beans, or with brown rice. You combine those starches. On the bottom, you've got some oats potentially with some fruit. So oatmeal and fruit is another one, right? So you don't have just the salad. Like I said, in the mistakes that I've made, and some of my clients continue to make, and that's what the next slide is. So of the clients that I've had, I've got almost 40 clients in the last year or so that I've been working and supporting. The 2 biggest mistakes they make is they don't add enough starches. So one particular client, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I noticed on his food log he had 3 cookies. And I said to him, so tell me what's going on there? And he goes, well, I just got really hungry and I was at work and I had a really good lunch though. I mean, my lunch was healthy. I said, what did you have for lunch? And he had this huge salad. And that was all there was. It was just a salad. And I said, okay. I said, did you have any starch with it? He goes, oh, no, I didn't have any starch with it. I said, that's where you're missing it. You got to have that baked potato or those beans or that brown rice with that salad so you've got that satiety. The other mistake that they make is they're so used to dieting, and I don't like to call this a diet necessarily. They're so used to that they know that they need to stop and eat less food. And so they may have the sweet potato and the salad, but just as they start to get a little bit full, then they stop altogether instead of really eating. So really, this is a lifestyle where you eat until you're full, eat as much as you want, and then you can stop eating. So I always put on here hashtag no more being hungry because of that. You have to eat enough food because you want to get your calories and you want to get all your good nutrients, and it's very, very healthy. As I mentioned earlier, the calorie density chart, we showed you guys this last month. Incredibly important. We want to just maximize eating everything above the line itself specifically. Vegetables, the non-starchies are about 100 calories per pound, and it goes all the way to beans and legumes, which are about 600 calories per pound. So obviously, on average, if you're eating everything up there and you're avoiding as much as you can the stuff below, you're getting less calories, but you're still getting great nutrients, and you're still getting great satiety. You can have the avocados, which is 750 calories per pound. Very incredibly healthy, but they do have some fat in there. So if you're somebody that really would like to lose weight a little faster, I would say either to avoid that or try to minimize that. And the same with your 2,800 calorie nuts, seeds, butters, and tahini. I have those all the time, and they're very, very healthy. But if you're somebody that's trying to lose weight, there is some little more fat in there. As you can see, if I can get your direction to the bottom there, 4,000 calories per pound would be your oils, popcorn, etc. I call this the no worries diet, right? Or lifestyle. You do not need to worry about getting enough protein. You don't have to worry about getting enough calories. You don't have to worry about getting enough vitamins or minerals, except for vitamin B12, which I'll share with you in a minute. You don't have to worry about getting enough food or too much food. You don't have to worry about measuring your weight on a daily basis, your food on a daily basis. You can throw the scale away. Just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're not. It's really that simple. Your body will tell you when and how much to eat. Again, making plants convenient. What can you do to buy 3 or 4 or 5 bags, which are very inexpensive? We actually had the one all the way to the right last night as a side with our dinner. You throw that frozen corn in the microwave for 4.5 minutes, and you've got delicious tasting, no sodium added corn. Tasty, fast, healthy, convenient, inexpensive, and a long shelf life. Again, working with the how-tos. Here's another one, frozen fruits. So a lot of people make smoothies. A lot of people add this with some of the other things that they're having, oatmeal, etc. Very, very inexpensive, very convenient, very tasty, and a long shelf life as well. Again, making plants convenient. Canned vegetables. I'm not so high on the taste of canned vegetables, but in general, if they're no or low sodium, they're still very healthy, and you're going to make it convenient with what you can do to have something fast and tasty as well. So looking to improve your zone, I kind of target breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and what we can do to improve as far as our percentage goes. So with breakfast specifically, the first thing I want to talk about is whether you're going to have breakfast or not. So some of my clients, like for example, I'm pretty much, when I wake up, I'm hungry. I really want to go and have that oatmeal or that shredded wheat or what have you. My wife, not so much, right? And so remember what I said before, eat when you're hungry, don't eat when you're not. And I truly believe that. So I'm not one of these people that says you got to start out with a good meal with breakfast. If you're hungry, I would recommend it. If you're not hungry, don't. But don't skip breakfast when you're hungry, thinking you're trying to lose weight, and then get to 11 o'clock in the morning and have a very bad decision or a less healthy decision because you're so ravenous, right? That's not what this is about. So that's the first thing I want to mention as far as breakfast. But did you know that you can increase the percentage of plants in your life by switching just breakfast, right? Remember, the average American is probably 10 to 12% plants. So you can go up to 30% plants just by having a good whole food plant-based breakfast every day. Here's some examples, and this one is actually in your handout as well. The 1, 2, 3 oats. I pretty much have this just about every day. I had this morning for breakfast. It's 1 cup of rolled oats with 2 cups of water and 3 minutes in my microwave. And then I'm chopping up strawberries, blueberries, bananas, and I throw some raisins in there, a little bit of cinnamon. And that's pretty much what I have. Now that is a lot of food, and sometimes I can't breathe when I'm done eating that breakfast. But it's delicious. I love it. And it gets me to lunch pretty easy. Overnight oats, pretty straightforward. An unsweetened or a sweetened plant-based milk with overnight oats. You can soak them in the refrigerator so when you wake up in the morning, you're ready to go. And then there's plenty of cereals. I wouldn't say plenty, but there's definitely a number of cereals that you can purchase that are somewhat healthy, and you can add some fruit to those like your bananas, fresh berries, and cinnamon. Some people will have a fruit smoothie or a A veggie smoothie, those are fine. Those are fine. The only challenge I have with that, as I mentioned before, is you're not necessarily getting that starch, so you're going to potentially be hungry. And usually that's what happens with me. If I have a veggie smoothie, which from time to time I will, I'll get to about 10 or 11 o'clock, and then I want to snack on something, usually a piece of fruit because I'm still hungry. But that's an option. So lunch and dinner, again, we talked about 30% with breakfast, but if you go lunch and dinner and you go full boat with plant-based, you can increase from 40% to 70% of plants in your life. So it's really not that hard. And I'm going to get to some of the specific fast, easy recipes coming soon. But before I do, I want to talk a little bit about some of the sides. So you can literally have a small side salad, which I can throw together a salad in about 3 minutes in my house. We have the bag of spinach. We've got the cherry tomatoes. We get the organic shredded carrots. I throw a few almonds, sliced almonds out there, and we're really good to go. That takes me about 3 minutes, and then I also have a non-oil dressing that I put with that as well. You can microwave corn on the cob. I know we're not in season, but we're getting pretty close. But corn on the cob in the microwave, about 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes, and then you can cut off the edge and pinch it off. It's delicious. It's healthy. It's very convenient. And I don't want to forget to talk to you about, of course, the broccoli or anything you could throw in the corn or what have you to have a nice side for your meal itself specifically. Because I did mention the dressing, I did want to bring to your attention, this slide is a little bit different on your handout. I actually have a QR code on your handout where it gives you Dr. Furman's no oil walnut vinaigrette dressing, which is excellent. But the other ones are on there as well. And the first one is the 3-2-1 dressing, where you have 3 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, and 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. And some people will switch the first 2 and give them 3 tablespoons of maple syrup and 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar if they want it a little bit sweeter, but it's really, really good. White garlic dressing, there is a company called Bema and Paz that one of my clients brought to my attention. I purchased an excellent white garlic dressing. It's kind of expensive. It's about $40 for a big bottle of it. But I tell you, I have a lot more salad when I have it in the house, so I usually try to have that in the refrigerator. And Dr. Furman's no oil dressing is fairly inexpensive. You literally throw 7 ingredients in the blender, blend it for about 30 seconds, and it's good for about 5 to 7 days. Excellent dressings. Yeah, I want to talk about snacks as well, and this is something definitely that probably appeals to most of us. Some pretty straightforward stuff here. Fresh fruit, dried fruit. On your left, you've got some roasted sweet potatoes with cinnamon. A handful of nuts and a banana with some dates are also a pinch for a lot of my clients. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with nice cream, where you take frozen banana, you take bananas that are really, really ripe and you peel them and you throw them in the freezer. And you can have them in the freezer for weeks or months. And then you just take that frozen banana and throw it in a blender with a little bit of plant-based milk. And you blend it up, and it's like soft serve ice cream. It tastes so, so good. And it's all it is banana and plant-based milk. So we have that quite a bit as well. This clicker is not clicking very well. So this is one we actually had this last night. I usually have it 2 or 3 times a week as a side or in addition to our meals. You take the Mission yellow corn tortillas, and I cut them in 4s. I throw them in the oven at 400 degrees. At about 10 minutes, I look at the color because I kind of know I've been doing this quite a bit. And then I pull them out. Usually it's about 9 or 10 round tortillas on that cookie sheet. They taste great. The texture is good. They're actually a little bit sweet because it is corn tortillas. And the good thing about these is there's no salt, and it's 1/3 the calories of your chips you're going to get at the regular grocery store. So we'll have probably twice as much, but it's very, very healthy for you and not nearly as unhealthy as the oil-laden Tostitos and stuff. So batch cooking, again, big time saver. You can literally have the same meal for dinner for 2 nights in a row if that's something that appeals to you. It definitely appeals to me. We do that in my family quite a bit. I have, with my coaching program, I have actually a buddy program where I pair up my clients together. And when I do that, sometimes the clients actually cook for each other. So they'll batch cook a meal. They'll batch cook 2 meals on a Sunday, and the other buddy will batch cook 2 meals on a Sunday, and then they'll actually switch. So they'll have 4 different meals because they work together with the buddy. Batch cooking works very, very well. I wanted to think about, as I was going to present to you folks, what are the ways that it's going to land on your plate? And there's many number of ways. And we talk about restaurants in just a minute. Obviously, go to the grocery store and such. Online sources of food is there's 2 companies that I'm aware of that my clients have used, both of which they highly recommended. These are a little bit more pricey, obviously, because you're kind of getting the food delivered to your house, usually on a weekly basis, where your meals aren't necessarily 100% prepared, but you have all your ducks in a row, and all you got to do is add the produce. So the spices are laid out for you, the cans are laid out for you, etc. Mama Says is one of those at mamasays.com, and the other one is purplecarrot.com. And the one client that used both of them actually liked Purple Carrot a little bit better, but they were both very, very highly recommended by this specific client. Again, looking at all the different ways. Again, restaurants in the area. I think that's on your second to last sheet. You've got a list of restaurants that my wife and I eat in the area. The challenge is reality. You're not going to be able to typically go out and eat at restaurants on a consistent basis and not have additional sugars, oils, and salt added to your food. However, you can do the best you can possibly do and still eat out and enjoy yourself and have a plant-based meal. Just don't expect to be perfect. And again, this isn't about perfection. Those are on the screen are some examples of some of the companies that we've got on the flyer, but I think there's 17 or 18 different restaurants on that flyer with actually some of the one or two of the items that my wife and I order at those particular locations. A lot of folks are looking for recipes. Quite frankly, if you go to Google and you say plant-based meal recipes, you're going to have hundreds and thousands of recipes at your disposal. My recommendation is, especially the comments I made earlier about oil, is a lot of those will talk about adding oil, which is plant-based. When you're sauteing, you can certainly saute with just water. You can saute with wine. You can saute with broth. I don't recommend sauteing with oil for the reasons I expressed earlier. This is an excellent app that I purchased, and many of my clients have purchased this app for $4.99. It's got, I think it actually has over 500 new recipes now with 50 different chefs, and focuses on great tasting food. I've cooked many, many items on this. Definitely not nearly 500, but quite a few items on this on a consistent basis. So every one of these next slides is actually on your handout, so you don't have to worry about trying to memorize what's on the screen. But I lay out for you 10 different recipes that are fast meals. And as I mentioned before, it is a 15-minute, you throw it together just as long as you've organized and you've got the stuff on hand specifically. So the first one is brown rice and mixed vegetables. We talked earlier about batch cooking for the brown rice, or the Success brown rice, or the Trader Joe's brown rice. And then throw in some mixed vegetables, which could be frozen. You can throw that on a skillet and in 10 minutes pretty much, and add a little soy sauce, low sodium, and have a great meal. Whole grain pasta with marinara, really with a side of broccoli, which could be simple as just basically boiling the noodles and having the marinara always set up aside for you. Again, this is all about fast meals. Number 3 is loaded baked potato with salsa, beans, and veggies. This is something my wife has quite a bit. She'll get a big baked potato and cook it for 4 minutes on each side, and throw some guacamole on a bed of spinach with some beans that we'll have in the refrigerator already, and other vegetables. So very, very healthy and very delicious. Number 4 is hummus and veggie wrap. Again, excellent. Takes about 10 minutes to put that together. Number 5 is veggie tacos. So you warm the tortilla in the microwave, add water, rice, add warmed rice, a can of beans, veggies, salsa, a side of avocado, and a dash of cumin and chili powder. Again, delicious. This is a really good one for when as I'm having calls with some of my clients. What do you do in a pinch when you're really not ready to eat, but you're hungry? In other words, you haven't really done your homework. And a lot of times it's just simple. I get the PB2 and I get an orange, and I get the banana, and I have it on a whole wheat toast, and it's really, really good. So I actually had this quite a bit myself personally. PB2 is an excellent product. It's actually 85 to 90% less oil than your regular peanut butter that you're typically going to see in a grocery store. So it is excellent. Number 7 and number 8, a green smoothie and a fruit smoothie. Pretty straightforward. Just blending that up and you're good to go in about 10 minutes. Number 9 is a Mexican bowl. You can have that ready in about 15 minutes. Again, having this stuff on hand and throwing it together and heating it up. Very, very tasty. And this is a big winner for a lot of my clients. I actually got this. This is an image that I took, but my daughter brought it to my attention. She's primarily plant-based, or trying to be plant-based. She's finishing her last year of college. And she found this on Instagram, I think, and she said, "Hey, Dad, why don't you do this?" And so sure enough, I did it, shared it on my Recipe Tuesday with my clients, and they consistently tell me how wonderful it is. And we have it all the time, but it's literally, you open up every one of these cans, which everybody knows those cans are pretty straightforward. You drain out the beans and the corn, and you rinse them off. You heat it all up for 15 minutes, and you add a tablespoon of ground cumin, 2 tablespoons of chili powder, just a little bit of salt, and it tastes delicious after about 15 minutes of cooking. So again, it could be more convenient than that? This is Jeff Novak. He is a registered dietitian that Bob and I talked about earlier. He is hilarious. He's very entertaining. At least he's my kind of humor. He's very sarcastic. But in his handout that you have in your attachment there is really good. It talks about 5 main ingredients to a really simple meal. It's a certain type of canned tomato, and there's any number of kinds that he has. A type of canned beans, frozen vegetables, and a starch vegetable. So it could be brown rice, potato, and whole grain. And again, we talked about starches earlier. And then a certain type of seasoning. So when you mix and match those, you're going to have one of each one. So you can have different number of spices. When you mix and match those, you can have all different kinds of meals. And in fact, in your handout, it's got the recipes for these types of meals, which is basically every one of those bullet points, which is really, really good. So he's wonderful. If you Google him, you'll see him on your handout. He's fantastic. And like I said, I got this from his fast food DVD series, which is fantastic, which he doesn't make anymore. It's just available on Amazon, fairly inexpensive. So planning is incredibly important, and I think in some capacity, you have to plan. This is not something, well, I never thought about it, and now it's time to eat, and I'm starving, and now I'm going to make some bad decisions. You probably need to plan. And this is one example, isn't necessarily the end-all and be-all, but it's typically a very similar example of how my clients will plan on a weekly basis. But, you know, some people plan once a day. Some people plan, I have a client that actually plans 1 month out. So she planned the entire dinners for her family for the month of March in February, and that was her goal. She did the same thing in January for February. So some people plan differently, which is fine. But as an example, just so you can see what it looks like on your how-to, Friday, you can literally sit down and plan out what you want to eat for the next week. What am I going to have for breakfast? If I'm going to have breakfast, what am I going to have for lunch? What am I going to have for dinner? Saturday, then you would shop for what you need to eat, which takes, so the 15 to 30 minutes is what you're going to do to plan. And I've got examples of these in just a few slides. Saturday, you're going to shop for what you need to do. So that's probably 1.5 to 2 hours. So I have an announcement. I'm not basically sponsored by Walmart, but I will tell you that some of my clients and my daughter have said, you've got to do the Walmart pickup service. You've got to do that, Dad. Well, you know, I really want my vegetables to be great, and I don't want to get the spinach that's going to expire tomorrow, so no thank you. Well, 2 weeks ago, I thought, well, let me try it. It was fantastic. We're all very busy. Let's just reality. I'm retired and I'm crazy busy. So we're all very busy. So if you can take that hour and a half and shave it down, because it took me about 15 minutes to figure out I was going to eat and order it online, which is really simple. And then it took me 15 minutes to drive to Walmart, and it took me 15 minutes to come home. So in 45 minutes, I had my groceries on my counter. I was very, very happy. It may seem pretty minor. Well, this week, I said, let me try the delivery service. It was even better. I literally ordered my groceries in 15 minutes, and the next morning at 8 o'clock, the guy rings my doorbell and brings me my groceries. Now, it did cost, I think, $7, but for me, that was certainly well worth it in my time. So if you can imagine, in 15 minutes, you do one thing and you have groceries on your counter, that's what it was. So again, we're talking about efficiencies. Many of my clients have said, Mike, you've got to try this. And I thought, So now I'm looking at, what about Meijer, what about Hy-Vee? Those are all companies that offer that service. And I was very, very happy with the service that I got at Walmart. And then Sunday, for example, you can do preparing. And you don't have to do it on Sunday. I don't prepare on Sunday. I usually prepare the day of my meal. But a lot of people will prepare and cook a meal or two, which gets them by for 3 or 4 of their main course meals for dinner throughout the week. Again, just an example. That's for somebody that's a busy employed adult. I also have clients that struggle with something like that, but they just want to take 5 minutes in the evening as I ask them what makes sense for you. Every evening I'm going to be thinking about what am I going to be eating the next day, and I'm just going to take 5 minutes and figure it out, and just in those 5 minutes I'll have my ducks in a row. But you got to take the 5 minutes again, because the next morning you're ready to go, you get hungry and potentially make some less than healthy decisions. Just takes 5 minutes. So 3 scenarios of plant-based eating. We're doing okay on time here. The first scenario is getting to the orange zone, getting to the green zone, and getting to the gold zone is your last scenario. Getting to the orange zone. So this is an example of somebody that says, you know what, I'm going to dip my toe in the water. I'm going to go plant-based. I'm just going to go Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Okay? And in that scenario, if they go Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, they get to the orange zone. So greater than 50% plants, which is good. Another thing that they could do potentially to do this is they can just lock into having the same thing for breakfast every day and be impactful. Again, bumping that up by an additional 20 or 30%. In this example, plant-based black zone to orange zone. On Mondays, they're going to have oatmeal with fruit. They just have to make sure they have plenty of fruit and oatmeal on hand ahead of time. They're going to have a loaded baked potato at lunch, which both those two take anywhere from about 10 to 12 minutes to make. And then at night, you're going to have the Uncle Joe's pinto bean soup. Okay, that actually takes about 15 to 20 minutes to prepare, but typically it cooks over the course of a day in a slow cooker. So that's the main course meal that in this example that you're actually cooking and putting some time into, even though it's not that much time. On Wednesday, they're going to have a fruit smoothie. For lunch on Wednesday, they're going to go to McAllister's and have your veggie spud with veggie chili, put it all together in one big meal. Again, your starch with your chili, which is excellent. And then veggie fried rice, which is a fast meal that you have in your example. On Friday, they're going to have shredded wheat with fruit, your PB banana with sandwich on Friday, and then they're going to go to Chipotle for dinner at the end of the day. So that's an example of what you can do to go to the orange zone. Going to the green zone, going 75% in the green zone, those individuals are going to have plant-based foods Mondays through Fridays, and the weekends are going to do whatever they want, which they're going to still have some plants on the weekends, but just Monday through Friday, they're going to organize and get their ducks in a row. And what that looks like is there's 2 meals on there they're actually prepping. Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday are exactly the same. Tuesday, they're going to have oatmeal with fruit again the second day for breakfast. They're going to have leftover pinto bean soup, which is very common with people that eat plants and don't eat plants. They have leftovers. And then your chickpea salad sandwich, which takes about 15 to 20 minutes to make. It is excellent. It's a recipe that I gave to everybody last time that I was here. It's also on my website, wlscoaching.net. Thursday, they're going to skip breakfast. They're going to do a little intermittent fasting because they just chose one day a week. They're going to just skip breakfast, shorting the feeding window. They're going to have the leftover chickpea salad sandwich for leftovers for lunch on Thursday. And they're going to throw together a veggie wrap for themselves on Thursday. And then your last scenario is somebody that's going to shoot for the gold zone. Again, this is just scenarios and with prepping. So everything is the same on Mondays through Fridays. And then on Saturdays, they skip breakfast Saturday morning. They go to Subway for lunch on Saturday. And they have a plant-based chili meal, which takes about an hour and 15 minutes to prep that. It's excellent. Again, it's on my website. Shredded wheat with fruit on Sunday, leftover plant-based chili from the day before on Sunday for lunch, and then they go to La Fiesta and have some vegan tacos, which are really good down in the Chatham area. We have those quite a bit. So again, that's just some examples, and really sitting down and looking at this, it may seem overwhelming at looking at the slide, but quite frankly, in about 10 or 15 minutes after the second or third week of doing this, it kind of flows together. A few cautions that I mentioned the last time, I actually added one this time. So high blood pressure, if you go plants and you go 100% and you're taking high blood pressure medication, I recommend that you go slow and you monitor your blood pressure quite a bit. I have many clients that are off their blood pressure medication after a few weeks, or they half their dose in a few weeks. So it's important that you know that and you're monitoring your blood pressure, because if you get up very quickly when you're on blood pressure medication and you don't need it, you can have what's called erythrostatic hypotension. You can pass out or get very dizzy very quickly. So plants work that well, which is exciting. Same thing with diabetes medication. If you're on type 2 diabetes medication like metformin and you're doing this and you're going all in, that's wonderful. Just make sure you're monitoring it, and that's why I've got the picture there for you, because you could go with hypoglycemia as well for the same reasons, because it works that well. I talked about vitamin B12 a little while ago. The recommendation is if you are going to go plant-based 100%, vitamin B12 is actually made in the bacteria in the soil, which the animals are eating. And as you eat the animals, you do typically get more vitamin B12. However, you can get it as a supplement. I take one vitamin B12, as does my wife, every day. Make sure you have it. But you need to make sure you're taking it if you're going 100%. It does take several months or even years for you to run out of vitamin B12. But just to be on the safe side, it costs me, I think, probably about $6 or $7 every 6 months when I buy a big bottle of it. So, taking it slow. This is the one that I added recently. There is somewhat of a gut adjustment. The fiber that you're getting is feeding your microbiome, primarily in your large intestines. So it's important that you take it slow initially. So I have some clients that want to go 100% starting in April, but March, they're going to work their way up to 100%, which is wonderful. That's what the biggest challenge that I had, quite frankly, is I went on January 1st, 100%. All I was having was lettuce. It was very, very tough on my stomach. So there was a little bit of a learning curve there in taking the adjustment. So my guess is most of you knew before you walk in the door today that if you ate more plants in your life, you would be healthier. But some of us still struggle. It's not always necessarily knowing that information. What we do is not necessarily what we know, but the problem is doing what we know specifically, right? So what we want to do is I want to talk to you a little bit about changing behaviors, and this is something that I work with my clients on specifically. We can talk about exercise, we can talk about eating healthy, we can talk about saving for retirement. Anything, changing behaviors typically is very difficult. As a manager, as a leader for the Walgreens Drug Company for almost 30 years, and leading people to change behaviors is very tough. Even when they wanted to change behaviors, we learned that as well. So, in realm to exercise, let's just use this and we'll just kind of go back and forth here. You got to know why it's important to you, right? Why do you want to exercise more? So what are some examples of reasons why somebody would want to exercise? What do you think? Just throw out some.
Brain health.
Sorry? Brain health? Great, thank you. Brain health.
Cardiovascular.
Cardiovascular health? Okay, great. Why else would somebody want to exercise? Mobility. Thank you. What else? Feel better. Okay, what else? So mentally and physically, let's say. Yes, Bob?
Look better.
Look better. Okay, great. So tying into that why potentially can make it a lot easier to make the switch, because quite frankly, when you get out of bed in your 16th week of trying to exercise, some days you maybe don't feel like it, right? The reality is if we follow our emotions, we're not going to be anywhere we want to be. We all know that when we go to the Fit Club in January the 3rd, there are so many cars there we couldn't park, but for some reason the week prior when I came to the Fit Club, I had plenty of places to park. But what happens in March? Plenty of places to park. Pretty straightforward. Again, this is about making habits and behaviors stick. So knowing your why specifically. Plan for the pain of discipline. It's been said that there's the pain of discipline and there's the pain of regret. And the pain of regret is a lot heavier, right? So know that sometimes you're going to have to white knuckle it. Sometimes it's not going to be comfortable, just like anything as you're in the habit of doing things. Breaking through homeostasis, right? Know that that's part of this process. Visualize where you're going with clarity. So using some of the examples that you guys just told me, what does that look like as a visualization to your future? What do you think? Something specifically to your why, 2 years down the road, what does that look like? Your cognitive ability is much better or just the same because you don't want it to decrease? You're feeling fantastic on a routine basis? You've lost weight, you look better, you have more energy, you're more nimble, more confident, you have better self-body image issues, right? A lot of that stuff, you visualize where you're going. Reflect and monitor your progress. So somebody that's on an exercise program wants to reflect and monitor their progress. What do you think that could look like? What could that look like?
A journal.
Okay.
Journal every day. Your
Yeah.
blood pressure, check, your weight.
Absolutely. You could have a journal and you just basically jot down, this is what I did. Yes, ma'am. A chart, exactly. Document it on a chart. Thank you. How else could you reflect and monitor? Record it on your phone. Very good. Excellent. So a way that you can track your progress sometimes can keep you motivated and keep you to change that behavior. And the last one is accountability. So in the example that we're using with exercise, what does that potentially look like for you? What could accountability mean? What's that? Good blood work. Okay, great. Thank you. What else?
Check in with a buddy.
Check in with a buddy. Your doctor with your blood work. A coach. Your spouse, your partner, your significant other. Those are all people that potentially your actions and behaviors as it relates to your health could help you with accountability. You could, basically I'm going to go work out and I just can't do it on my own, but I got this friend that he's going to be there and you know what? I'm going to be there as well. So there's all ways that potentially can make it stick. When I first started my journey with coaching my clients, which was February of last year, like I said, I thought this was all about, okay, yeah, you want to go plants? Great. Here's some recipes, and we'll talk to you on a weekly basis, and go to it. It was a lot more about this than it was about that. So much more. And now I think it's so much more sustainable and so much more, it makes more of an impact. So if you will, just for a couple of minutes, I want to talk to you about the program itself. First and foremost, you guys all swiped your credit card when you came in the room today. I appreciate that. 100% free. So I talk to my clients on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. There's no charge for that at all. As I mentioned before, I do send a recipe out on Tuesdays to my clients, my former clients, and friends and family and loved ones. I also send a video via email on Watch It Wednesdays, which could be an hour and a half. It could be, there's 3-minute videos I send. They're all over the place as it relates to changing behaviors, healthy lifestyle, etc. keeping them informed and really not just fueling their bodies, but also fueling their minds. You choose specifically what makes sense to you as it relates to that behavior, right? As it relates to the degree of plants you want to go. I have clients that just want to talk with me about exercise initially, which is totally fine. If they never want to talk to me about plants, that's fine as well. But they eventually would like to move toward that direction because they realize that's going to be better health for them. But they choose where they want to be. I have biweekly and weekly coaching. I also have a weekly video that I'm starting in April where I'm sending a video of myself talking to my clients and engaging them with dialogue that I do on a weekly basis. We used to have an evening video conference call, but getting everybody to be on the video conference call at the same time and understanding the technology to get on the video conference call was sometimes a challenge. So now we're going to do it this way where I'm going to send them a group me text together where we're all going to basically talk and dialogue back and forth and support each other in that capacity. It's all about support, support, support. My next program starts in April, and I also set them up with a buddy. So every one of my clients has another buddy that's either a current client or a former client through the WLS coaching program. So I wanted to share that information. If anybody would like to know more information about that, you have my contact information. I'd be happy to potentially help you. And again, as I mentioned before, this isn't just about plants. This is really about total health. The Ornish program in here really talks about 4 pillars, which is stress reduction, which is plant-based eating, which is exercise, and which is loving, supportive relationships that you have in your life. And I add one that I like to talk to my clients about if they want to, and that's about sleep. Because I think sleep is incredibly important. I think we're always so incredibly busy and not necessarily getting the amount of sleep that we have. I wanted to share with you, and I don't think that I shared testimonials from clients the last time I was here, but I do have a couple that I want to share with you. I don't know if you guys know these people. This is Rose and John. These are a couple of clients that I had in my July-August program, and they're still doing really well with plant-based eating. Rose, basically from June to October, she lost 30 pounds. That's her being goofy in her before picture, eating a Heath bar. And that's her eating lettuce in her after picture. Her clothes, these are all her comments. She said, my clothes feel better. I have more energy. My joints and muscle pain are free most of the time. My kids have expressed pride and encouragement, and I have better body image. So that's going well. And as I talked to her recently, actually she's a new client for me again, but as I talked to her recently, she said that she still has lost 30 pounds and she hasn't gained any of that weight back. So sustainability-wise, that's a success. This is her husband, John, who has lost now 35 pounds. Initially, he'd lost 27, and he's lost an additional 8 pounds. He's off both of his blood pressure medications. He has better energy, better digestion. He's more confident with improved body image. He started biking and working out again, and recently, in February, he ran up the Wyndham in less than 7 minutes, so he's very proud of me. I talked to him last week about it. He wanted to share that with me. The thing that I think is pretty cool with both of them is they're very unique in their approaches. So he was more of a dip the toe kind of person, and she was more of she's all in. I mean, their program started July, August. I think it was July, August. And the month before they started, I coach my clients before the program starts. She was already eating plants. She was eating oatmeal. She started right away, and her weight was dropping. She was getting energy. Everything was going wonderful. Now, he is really a foodie. He's an Italian guy, just like my wife, and he loves food, and he loves making the food, so he really gets into the recipes. So I was coaching him on different recipes, and some of the other recipes he would find that just the taste of the food wasn't as good for him. She was loving it. She didn't care, and he really gets into it. So I thought it was really cool how they both had different ways that they went at going for plants, but now pretty much on a consistent basis, with the exception of the holidays. They said, there was a few meals there where they had some meat, but for the most part, they were very, very successful with what they did in eating plants. So 2 different approaches.